we did a few years ago, when we were trying to close a firehouse on Prospect Avenue in West Hartford. And I knew better because my brother and my family always tell them there's times when there's down times. So I came up with an idea in public meeting to have the firemen go out for a fee and inspect 3,000 buildings in West Hartford, multifamily houses, income producing, and commercial property. Because as a contractor, I see it every day. Backdoor egress, you name it, fire hazards, stuff in hallways. And so they were able to adopt that and make more work, I should say, create, not necessarily jobs, but fill in between all the other duties of the fire department. At the time they were having EMT car accidents, so that was filling up. But there was a big push, and I just mentioned earlier, I'll repeat it here, it's kind of funny when you have conversations. We have a war with the unions. It's the teachers' union versus the cops and the firemen in municipalities. And I saw it going on in West Hartford. I was on council liaison to the education committee, and I fought for years what's called the education cartel. That's what I call them. It's basically the union bosses, the teachers, organizations, social engineers, and more money is going from the state and federal government into our sinkholes of education, and is robbing from other areas in our town, from garbage collection, fire departments, police departments, public works. We're seeing it in a very affluent town in West Hartford, where our town side budget is there's not much we can do. And as of last night, they want to actually hire administrator in West Hartford, and the registrar of voters, Ellie Brazel, came pleading to me, how are we going to stop this? They want to take the registrar, basically put them out with zero money. You're voted in office, now you'll get no money in West Hartford to be a registrar. And they'll put somebody in for $12 an hour to do some of the duties under the town clerk. So little by little, we're seeing elected officials even push back, but you'll see our budget yesterday went up over 4% for education in West Hartford. So this is a mirror of what I'm using West Hartford not only because I'm from it, but we set a standard in that town where a lot of towns emulate us. We're the first town to manage a form of government. Being on council and fighting the town for years as a citizen, I learned a lot and respected a lot about the procedures. At the state level, the people I've opposed in West Hartford for a decade are the names Kevin Sullivan, who was the Commissioner of Tax Revenue Services, Andy Fleischman, the co-chair of the Education Committee, who on the Common Core issue tried to block us, Beth Bye with the bathroom bill. So a lot of these liberals, I'll call them liberal Democrats, not necessarily blue-collar, blue Democrats, I have been fighting for a long time in West Hartford, and I know how they operate. And this gets me to my union stance, because it's kind of funny today. I walked to a bar with Mary Ann to actually get some nachos before we came here, and I ran into my uncle, Mike Sullivan, who was he's 80 years old now, but he's a business agent for IATSE Local 84, where I got my first job as a stagehand at the Bushnell Auditorium in the Hartford Civic Center. So I've walked the picket line before. I've been a non-union my whole life, general contractor. My father, all the guys that worked for him formed the laborers union in Hartford, so the Cantone family. So this, it's been in and out of my life, and over the years, I always heard something from my dad and from my uncles and all of them at the table, because union, non-union, we always fought and argued over things. Even my mother-in-law, God rest her soul, was the treasurer of the state employees union. So you can imagine Thanksgiving dinners and the things we had to hear about. It's been in and out of my life. I fought hard over the last, I'd say, 7 years against John Olson, the AFL-CIO, and a lot of the unions, even in West Hartford, telling the bosses, telling the workers that this was unsustainable. The numbers we were doing for pensions, for health care, participation, we are going to come to a point. I'm all over the internet, you can see it all, over the years, saying it, and we're here now. And so now I'm looking, running for governor, to bring this issue, no matter if I win or not, bring this issue out, and the union workers are approaching me on Facebook and emails. For a year now I've been in the race about what are you going to do? How do we save our pensions? That's the number one thing I'm hearing. How do we save our pensions? Because they understand that the pension system is unsustainable. And worse than that, the interest rates is what I'm concerned about. A few weeks ago in Pennsylvania, the Federal Reserve, they pitched an idea in the Philadelphia branch of raising short-term interest rates to 3.5% in 3 years. It's a signal, they didn't do it yet, but it's a signal that rates will climb. If rates climb, when rates do climb, eventually they will climb. Something called risk arbitrage for the state, where they invest money and they have a return on investment. We can get caught in a cycle with our investments on pensions at the state level and even your municipal where we can really have a change in the pension systems. Some people think, well, we get more interest, it'll come back. That's a convoluted answer, and people have to remember that if rates move quicker and we don't restructure pensions, truly restructure, we are going to have a downgrade. This is my greatest fear. If there's a collision in ideology between the interest rates, the credit rating of Connecticut, which is, I believe, is last in America, number 50 on the list of last for credit rating, that we will be downgraded. What that means for a state when they want to give a municipality money and participate is that it costs more to borrow. If you couple that, a downgrade and or an interest rate, and any measure of those two, you can't weather the storm there, your investments are in danger. And so the future investments, and this is why I keep hearing, because normal people realize, wait a second, I'll be out of this job in 5 years, but what about my pension? And never mind even the health services and their participation, they're really concerned about what they put away as a nest egg. So I'm going to be going across the state like I am today, talking, and one-on-one. I'll do privately. A lot of people, especially union members, like to talk one-on-one. They're not really out there, especially with a Republican, to want to speak about these things publicly for 1,000 reasons, because the majority of union members have always been Democrat. But I've seen them come out on a one-on-one direct message with their concerns, and the number one concern is their pension. And so I'm out here to get ideas, to talk and interact as a Republican, because our party has been branded anti-union. We want to destroy unions. We have one candidate in the race that just got in the race, I won't mention names, but called publicly in the Hartford Current last week for the elimination of public unions. So that candidate stepped in a puddle of mud and splashed on us. Now, I have to come out even harder because that's not me. There will be union workers who, through attrition, retire. That's going to happen. So my motto has been for a year in the race, not one more job and not one more home lost in Connecticut because someone got fired or laid off. There's another way, there's a better way. Malloy's failed. He's failed the unions. They may have banked that things were just going to come around like the rest of the country, but it didn't work that way. And so now he's in a desperate attempt for cronyism to give out money. And that's how I started my whole thing in politics in 2003, 2004. I opposed in West Hartford the Blueback Square a development, not for a development, but for the no-bid development that was $48 million in bonds, municipal bonds that went out to a no-bid developer. And were never guaranteed by the developer. And the developer last year sold the project in West Hartford, left the country with his profits, and was never bound to the bonds. So it took me 10 years to be right. I'd rather be fulfilled sometimes than right, but you know, I have a history of these things with the unions, with these developments where I'm on the right side of it as an individual, and I'm publicly on the right side of it as a candidate for Congress, as an elected official. And these things you start to build on, you're right. Why you're right? Because you can, as a builder, I can't overpromise I can't build this building. I'm either going to put the cinder blocks up, lay the vinyl floor, pour the concrete, which I do all the trades, put the suspended ceiling up, everything but your mechanical. I have to know I can do this with my team, with my hands, to back it up. And so I saw as a builder that what we were doing was unsustainable. It just comes from my 40 years in the trades raised by my dad, that I knew this is unsustainable. Economically, we can't continue. At some point, things will crash. And many people felt this too. They just weren't in public life to state it. So we want to, my campaign and myself want to speak to everyone, get your names and numbers. I'm going to leave my cell phones. People want to call me, have a conversation. It's confidential. Not necessarily to win a vote, but to take the issues and develop them even further on the campaign trail, so I can put these out on the trail. Because if I didn't make it after the primary or to the election, that's not as valuable to me as what I can get back in the process of being a candidate. It's important, and it's an opportunity for all of you to have someone. The Democrats aren't going to do this. They're not going to talk about these things. They're just going to try to get everybody to vote Democrat, vote D, don't think. Republicans will walk away and won't say much either end public unions, or other candidates that are Republican will step up and ask you publicly what you think and try to work with it. But we're here to try to save the pensions. The Connecticut pension system, state of Connecticut, is a ship on fire that's sinking and drifting into the rocks. And we need to put out the fire. pump out the bilge, throw the anchor out before we hit the rocks. It's that bad. And anyone who tells you different, from Kevin Lembo to Governor Malloy, is using smoke and mirrors. On my website, Visconti for Governor, we have cards, I'll leave you here. You'll see an article called Forbes. It says Forbes article right on the front of my website. And it's a 7-page, I believe it's 7 to 9 pages of sobering details of how did rich Connecticut morph into one of the worst performing economies in America. And they just take us apart for 7 years to show how our good intentions, from employees' benefits to everything we have entitlements, how we got here. And it's sobering because it calls out Republicans, it calls out Democrats, it calls out everybody, and says, "Is here how you got here? How can we get out?" And so there's a lot more than that, but I'll open up to some questions, and if there isn't any here, I definitely will leave a card because I want to hear from you all later on, or email. Go ahead, sir.